This afternoon we're going to do GB brownies, and this is a recipe that my stepdaughter and I worked away at, as we both have a passion for chocolate, and brownies are one of those things that everyone has a recipe for, but to get the ultimate brownie, you really, have to be careful about your ingredients, and less is more in this case. So what we're using this afternoon is some Dutch processed cocoa, unsalted butter, berry sugar, vanilla, pastry flour, and free-range eggs. So how we start is we're going to melt the unsalted butter. Use quite a bit of butter in this recipe, but the idea is that you're using great ingredients and you're indulging just a small amount. So just melting the unsalted butter, and I always use for baking unsalted butter because it's with salt acts as a preservative, and so the flavors are easier to control when you use unsalted butter. So to this we're going to add 1.5 cups of berry sugar, and I use berry sugar quite often for baking because it's much easier to incorporate into your recipe. It melts in more easily and gives you a nicer sort of texture. So we're adding 1.5 cups of sugar to the butter. I'm just going to let that melt. What you want with the butter and the sugar is for it to melt together, and you're going to whisk it just till it comes sort of a smooth mass. You want the sugar to dissolve in the butter, and once that's happened, you're going to remove it from the heat, let it cool a little bit, and then we're going to add the rest of the ingredients. And to me, it's like the ultimate dessert. You can dress it up. You can have it straight out of the pan. You can have it with ice cream, with berries, with caramel sauce. So once the butter is totally melted, we're just going to whisk it until the sugar's incorporated. And then we're going to let that cool. And then we're just going to combine using pastry flour here. You could use all-purpose unbleached flour, and we've got 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt, 1 cup of cocoa, and we're using Dutch unprocessed cocoa. And the reason we're using this is because the Dutch processing actually makes the cocoa a little bit more mellow. It takes the acid out of it, and you get a lovely, rich, dark brown sort of color and intense flavor. And this brownie recipe actually is better made the day before and let it sit and mellow a bit. It's like making a really great banana bread. It sort of gets better as you keep it longer. Take the melted butter and the sugar. Just going to move it into a smaller mixing bowl. And then we're going to add the eggs. Again, using free-range organic eggs. You see the lovely texture, the smooth kind of creamy texture once the butter and the sugar come together. You want to make sure that your mixture is definitely cooled down so that the eggs don't cook when you're adding them to the sugar. Once you've added the first one and loosened the mixture up, then you can just go ahead and add the rest. As you see, it's a super easy recipe to make here. And the key to it is actually in the cooking. You want to make sure that you don't overcook them because they go from absolutely ambrosia to something that you could find sort of anywhere. It's all in the cooking that actually gives you the great, dense, fudgy, chewy texture. And then we're going to add some vanilla to this. Pure vanilla extract. Always go for the real thing. You're adding about 1/2 teaspoon of that. And then we're going to add the dry ingredients. Gently fold this in. You don't want to over mix it. Whenever you're mixing together ingredients, especially for baking with adding flour to liquid ingredients, you don't want to overwork it because that's going to change the texture. So, but we want to make sure that it's well mixed together. We're using a non-stick baking pan. And we're just going to pour this into the baking pan. And this is the stage then, if you're going to add nuts or dried fruit or chocolate. I'm just going to put them on half of the brownies because I'll get in trouble in my family if I put walnuts on the whole thing because I'm really deviating from the original recipe here. And they'd say, I can't improve upon it. And then we're going to add a little bit of some chunks of Valrhona chocolate, my absolute fave. And I think they'll allow me to put them on the other side. And we're going to take this and pop it into the oven. At 325, we're going to let that bake for about 18 minutes. Wow, our brownies have come out of the oven. We've been patient enough to let them cool, which you must because they're gooey and delicious and yummy, but they've got to cool down enough so that you can actually cut them. And we're going to cut them in smallish sort of portions. You can let people come back for seconds, but they are quite rich. I'm going to dust them with a little bit of cocoa, but just give that nice sort of contrast, the sweetness and the dark kind of powdery cocoa on top. Ooh, if you can see how dense and delicious they are here. Add a few raspberries to the plate, just for a presentation. And I've picked some golden lavender out of the garden. Just going to add that. And then just dust the plate a little bit more. So I think I need to taste, this is just like too much. I think I need to taste a little bit of this before everyone comes in to taste themselves. I think that's the ultimate brownie.